Welcome to History in Focus. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more historical content. Also, let me know in the comments which moment impacted you the most. Enjoy the video. A haunting image from the battle for Hill 484 shows a wounded Marine gunnery sergeant, Jeremiah Purdy, being led past a fellow Marine who has fallen. The intense firefight left many soldiers injured and struggling through the chaos of war. Hill 484, a strategic position, became the site of fierce fighting, with the image capturing the raw emotions of survival, pain, and brotherhood in the heat of battle. In May 1970, 2 Viet Cong prisoners are escorted by ARVN soldiers to a command outpost in Ha Tien. Captured in the dense jungle, these prisoners were likely part of the intense battles that raged along the Vietnam-Cambodia border. Their faces show the fatigue of war, while the ARVN soldiers maintain their grip as they march forward. In the heart of the Mekong Delta, a Viet Cong guerrilla vigilantly stands guard, her rifle at the ready. The vast network of rivers and wetlands in this region provided natural cover and strategic advantage for the Viet Cong during the Vietnam War. Her determined gaze reflects the resilience of the guerrilla fighters who used their knowledge of the terrain to fight against the U.S. forces. In February 1968, as the Battle of Hue raged on during the Tet Offensive, terrified refugees fled the destruction by crossing the Perfume River to reach safety. The bridge, now partially destroyed, became a haunting symbol of the devastation that engulfed the city. Families clung to boats, desperate to escape the violence that had overtaken their homes. Troops from the 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, advanced through the dense jungles of Vietnam, escorted by tanks and bolstered by airstrikes. The flames from the bombing runs are still visible in the distance, illuminating the perilous path ahead. The combination of ground forces and air support showcases the intensity of the jungle warfare that characterized much of the conflict in 1966. Guerrillas stand watch at a strategic outpost on the Vietnam-Cambodia border, where the terrain is lined with deadly bamboo punji stakes soaked in poison. These traps were designed to maim or kill intruders, providing a formidable defense for the guerrilla fighters during the Vietnam War. The barbed wire adds another layer of defense, showcasing the harsh realities of the conflict. In a rare and intense combat scene, Viet Cong fighters meet the enemy face-to-face, most likely in the Mekong Delta or Plain of Reeds. The image captures both sides in action. ARVN soldiers are positioned at the top of the frame, while Viet Cong fighters engage from the foreground. The tension of the encounter reflects the chaotic nature of the Vietnam War's guerrilla warfare. Prisoners sit on the floor, eating a meal in the overcrowded conditions of Con Son Prison in South Vietnam. This location would later become notorious for the infamous Tiger Cages photographs, which exposed the brutal treatment of political prisoners during the Vietnam War. The image captures a moment of relative calm amid a harsh and inhumane environment. In the dense jungles of southern Laos, Laotian guerrillas transport supplies to North Vietnamese Army, NVA troops near Route 9, using both foot soldiers and an elephant. This scene highlights the resourcefulness and traditional methods employed in warfare as the South Vietnamese forces attempted to cut off the NVA's supply routes during the Vietnam War. An American infantry soldier, utterly drained from the relentless combat, collapses to the ground among his fellow soldiers. His face is marked by fatigue, and he clutches his canteen in an effort to recover some energy. This scene captures the raw exhaustion experienced during the Vietnam War, where moments of rest were brief and hard-earned. Ethnic Cambodian guerrilla Dan Son Hol, severely injured by American bombing, is transported through the waterlogged mangrove swamp. The makeshift medical team struggles to move him to a hidden operating room, where they will attempt to save his life amid the harsh conditions of the Ca Mau Peninsula, September 15, 1970. 2 American soldiers stand by, watching as a suspected Viet Cong house is engulfed in flames. The bamboo structure crackles as the fire spreads, slowly consuming the roof and walls. The scene is a vivid reminder of the devastating impact of war on both the land and its people. As bombs explode behind them, North Vietnamese Army soldiers sprint across the open terrain near strategic Highway 9 in southern Laos. Operation Lam Son 619 was the South's attempt to cut the Ho Chi Minh Trail, but the effort ultimately failed. The scene captures the intensity of the battlefield, where every second counted for survival. Amid the rubble and destruction of Hue, a mother carries her children in baskets, walking past the remnants of a brutal battle. Civilians attempt to return to their everyday lives while soldiers march in the background, a reminder of the ongoing war that has engulfed the streets. Following an assault on a Viet Cong village, U.S. troops escort joy girls or sex workers from the area. The burning huts in the background add to the scene's devastation, reflecting the harsh and complex nature of war in Vietnam. This image captures a moment of both destruction and displacement. 4 Viet Cong prisoners are seen waiting to be transferred to a prisoner of war camp after being captured in a tunnel complex in Thanh Dien, January 1967. The expressions of fear and uncertainty on their faces reflect the harsh realities of war as they face an uncertain future in captivity. In February 1973, female Viet Cong prisoners of war await their transfer to the release point in Can Tho. With their heads covered, these women endured the harsh conditions of captivity. As part of the Paris Peace Accords, POW exchanges began, and these women were set to return to their homes after years of conflict and struggle. In 1968, a wounded American soldier is seen being evacuated in Hue, Vietnam. The Tet Offensive left many soldiers injured, and this image highlights the efforts made to transport the wounded to safety. Amidst the chaos of war, medics and soldiers alike fought to preserve lives, making every helicopter rescue mission a crucial endeavor. In April 1968, American troops received vital supplies from helicopters on Hill Timothy in Vietnam. This image captures the intense coordination and effort needed to sustain troops in rugged terrain. Helicopters hover overhead, dropping supplies and soldiers in a dangerous but necessary operation. Hill Timothy was a strategic location that played a key role in the Vietnam War. In this harrowing image from 1962, a U.S. pilot witnesses the destructive power of napalm as it engulfs Viet Cong positions below. The flames erupt in fiery orange and black clouds, a chilling reminder of the devastation caused by this highly flammable gel. Napalm, notorious for its ability to stick and burn through almost anything, became a controversial weapon in the Vietnam War due to its brutal effects on both soldiers and civilians. Bright red tracer rounds illuminate the night sky, creating a striking contrast against the darkness as U.S. and South Vietnamese soldiers carry out their security checks. The scene is tense, filled with the glowing streaks of light and the sense of anticipation of what may come next. In the midst of war, even the night offers no rest, only heightened alertness. In the midst of the intense and brutal siege at Khe Sanh, this image captures a rare moment of tenderness. A weary American soldier holds a small dog close to him, offering a brief moment of comfort and companionship amid the chaos of war. The battle raged around him, but for a moment it was just him and the dog. This intense moment captures U.S. soldiers of the 9th Infantry Division, shirtless and firing at enemy troops in the thick, humid jungles along the South Vietnamese-Cambodian border. The heat, the sweat, and the tension of the jungle warfare are all visible as they push forward, fully engaged in the firefight. This image shows photographer Ted Atchison speaking with a Vietnamese family whose home was destroyed during the Vietnam War. The rubble around them tells a story of loss and devastation, yet the resilience of the family stands in contrast to the destruction. This photograph captures the moment soldiers climb a ladder into a Chinook helicopter during Operation Cedar Falls, one of the largest operations of the Vietnam War. The operation was aimed at eliminating the Iron Triangle, a Viet Cong stronghold near Saigon. In this solemn image, service members stand respectfully near the coffins of their fallen comrades during a funeral ceremony at Tan Son Nut Air Base. These men are preparing to transport their comrades' remains back home, a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made during the Vietnam War. This photograph captures the resolve of a wounded American Marine during Operation Prairie near the DMZ in October 1966. Despite a head injury, the Marine continues to push forward, symbolizing the grit and determination of soldiers during one of the most brutal battles in the Vietnam War. This haunting image shows hundreds of combat boots scattered along a road on the outskirts of Saigon, left behind by ARVN soldiers. As the war came to an end, these soldiers discarded their uniforms and boots in an attempt to hide their military status and avoid capture. The boots serve as a silent testament to the chaos and desperation in the final days of the Vietnam War. This image captures a poignant moment during the Vietnam War, where a soldier of the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, ARVN, assists his wounded comrade. The ARVN formed the ground forces of the South Vietnamese military, with nearly 1 in 9 citizens of South Vietnam enlisted at the height of the conflict. Their resilience and dedication to defending their homeland were tested daily in brutal combat conditions. Scenes like this highlight the human cost of war, where survival often depended on comradeship and bravery. This striking image shows the devastating power of airstrikes during the Vietnam War. With little room for error, these missions were called in to target enemy positions, often causing massive explosions that engulfed large areas. The soldiers below moved swiftly, knowing that each strike could change the course of a battle in moments. Airstrikes played a significant role in the conflict, both as a strategy to demoralize the enemy and to gain tactical advantages. This heart-wrenching image captures orphans looking out of the windows of a World Airways DC-8 jet during the first Operation Babylift flight. As the Vietnam War drew to a close, thousands of Vietnamese orphans were airlifted to the United States for adoption in one of the largest humanitarian efforts of the time. These children, separated from their war-torn homeland, were beginning their journey to an entirely new life, uncertain but filled with hope. In this rare and unexpected scene from the Vietnam War in 1967, American GIs are seen with a small monkey on a leash, offering a brief moment of levity amidst the chaos of war. Soldiers often adopted animals as companions during their time in the field, providing some comfort and distraction from the harsh realities of combat. This image captures the juxtaposition of the innocence of the animal with the gravity of the soldier's mission. This powerful image captures a U.S. soldier from Portsmouth as he carries an elderly Vietnamese woman to safety during the Vietnam War in 1970. The soldier's determined expression and the woman's fragile, worn figure depict the harrowing consequences of war. It serves as a reminder of the human cost of conflict, where soldiers often found themselves not only fighting battles, but also saving lives in the midst of destruction. In this heartbreaking image, a mother with her children wade through a river in Loc Thuong, Vietnam, seeking safety from the relentless U.S. bombing during the Vietnam War. The desperation and fear are evident as the family clings to each other in a bid to survive. It represents the harsh realities of war, where civilians were forced to flee their homes and seek refuge wherever they could find it, often in the most perilous of circumstances. This image, taken in 1968 during a pro-Vietnam War rally in New York City, captures a young boy holding a banner that reads, "If your heart is not in the USA, get your dart out now." The rally was a part of a growing division in the U.S., where citizens were either in strong support or deep opposition to the ongoing war. The image reflects the intense patriotism felt by some Americans during this turbulent time, especially with the backdrop of public protests and anti-war sentiment. In this chilling image from 1967, a U.S. Air Force first lieutenant is held captive by a young North Vietnamese girl during the Vietnam War. The picture paints a stark contrast between the soldier's battle-worn appearance and the girl's youth, yet the seriousness of the war is evident on her face. The Vietnam War saw many such moments where civilians, often young, were drawn into the heart of conflict, embodying the complex and tragic nature of the war. In 1970, Rome witnessed a large anti-Vietnam War protest as demonstrators took to the streets to voice their opposition against the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. The streets filled with passionate chants and symbols of defiance were displayed, like the American flag dragged along the ground as a symbol of protest. Italy, like many countries, saw a surge in anti-war movements during this period, reflecting a global sentiment for peace. The Norden bomb site, developed in 1939, revolutionized aerial bombing for the U.S. military. With its ability to account for variables such as altitude, wind speed, and airspeed, it drastically improved bombing accuracy during World War II. This innovation was critical in targeting key strategic locations with precision, forever changing the landscape of warfare. a tense moment captured during the 1968 Democratic National Assembly in Chicago, where a National Guard serviceman interrogates protesters in the middle of an anti-Vietnam War demonstration at Grant Park. The rising anger against the war clashed with the military presence, leading to a day filled with confrontation and chaos. How did America's youth face off against authority in their pursuit of peace? In this haunting scene from 1969, a young boy holds his baby brother while standing amidst the ruins of their village, Tha Son, in South Vietnam. The devastation surrounding them is overwhelming, yet his gaze remains steady, a silent testament to the resilience of innocence amidst the horrors of war. How many dreams were shattered here? How does one rebuild after such destruction? In March 1968, London became the stage for a violent clash between police and demonstrators protesting against the Vietnam War. Outside the U.S. Embassy in Grosvenor Square, chaos unfolded as the crowd's anger grew, demanding an end to the war. Faces of determination, fear, and defiance filled the square, and this moment captured the raw tension. Can you feel the energy of the crowd, the weight of their resistance?